Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be a short video on the Phillies' tough loss last night after being up 6-1. This is Sports Fanatic News. I'm Joe Boric. We still, in my opinion, need to pump the brakes on Aaron. Aaron Nola's getting off to a bad start to the season, but there's many other good pitchers that aren't getting off to as good of a start. Chris Sale in Boston being one of them. Steven Strasburg, as what we did yesterday, has a 4-something ERA now. And there's a decent amount of guys that are supposed to be top-notch pitchers that aren't getting off to the best start. Because if we look at the guys that have the best ERAs in baseball after a few games in the top 10, other than Mike Clevenger, a lot of them are guys that are remaking a name for themselves or even haven't made a name for themselves yet. And then when we look at Corbin, who's a good pitcher, he even has a 3.75. That's not bad, but I'm sure he want a better start. James Paxton has a 4.09. And then Justin Verlander started the year with a 4.24. So guys are getting off to slower starts. And for all those guys that have proven track records, including Nolas, you got to pump the brake. All good pitchers have their stretches. It just so happens it can be more concerning when it's at the start of the season. But I think the way you also can look at that is it's the start of the season. Spring training was not into as deep this year, meaning it didn't go as far. We started the season earlier. That definitely affects pitching and pitchers not having as much of a feel for their pitches. They might have the velo and they might have some of the movement, but in terms of commanding the strike zone, they don't have as much of a feel. So that, I think we had to pump the brakes on. Someone that has for sure concerned me so far in the Phillies, I'm pulling up his numbers right now, is the lefty we acquired, Jose Alvarez. And that's because if you look at his career, he's been solid. His best year was last year when he pitched to a 2.71, but he typically had, 2017, he had a high 3, mid 3, and then mid 3. So he's always been a guy that gives up some runs, but he also figures out a way to get guys out usually. And to this year, he hasn't been able to do that at all. All of his pitches look very flat. And I think he's a guy that has that track record of having mid-3s to then having his best year last year. But I also think with our team, with him, if he keeps really struggling, what he reminds me of so far, which is a terrible comparison for anybody, is Antonio Bastardo, how when we had losing momentum and he came in, he made the losing momentum even worse. I remember a game we were winning where Joe Blandon pitched. Joe Blandon started to blow it similar to Nola. Then Bastardo came in and gave up a grand slam. Of course, Alvarez didn't give up a grand slam, but he did give up a 3-run shot. That was a pretty big shot over the foul pole by Soto. And whether that was fair or foul, it didn't look necessarily fair from all angles on the board, but when you call it a home run, you need conclusive evidence. So I think the Phillies are still having a great start at 7-3. We look to bounce back tonight with Nick Pivetta on the mound versus Jeremy Hellickson, two guys, and also got off the slower start. Made the proven track record. Both guys are formed the careers that tend to have mid-4 ERAs, but they tend to be guys. And when they get going, they do have good stretches. And also, Pivetta in his first start looked very bad, I will give you that. In his second start, he battled through I was at the game, one of the worst elements I've been in a while to see a pitcher have to pitch through. And he battled through it, and the way that I looked at it as a positive is he usually struggles in bad elements big time. Those are the games that he tends to have the worst issues in. And the fact that he was able to battle through it is definitely a good sign. But for the Phillies, I really love how Harper's doing so far. Segura, other than that, Look, McCutchen's going to get his average up. He has too good of a tracker to do it. Rob Bellis was talking about it on leading off yesterday, and he's right. He's going to get his average up. The good thing is his OPS is very good, and his on-base percentage is still very good. He's getting walked. Real Muto had his best game so far yesterday. That's good to see. He's just a stud defensively. So you're willing to wait a little bit for the offense on his front. Odubel's been off to a good start. Franco's obviously had a good start so far. And then Cesar needs to get going. I'll give him a little bit of time due to coming back from a busted foot. But I think with the backups, and Kingery had a good game when he came in the other day, there's not going to be as much wiggle room and leeway and longer leashes with this team now that we're here and we have all these good guys in house. You're going to see guys getting sent down or optioned. I don't think you're not going to see it with Cesar, but with a guy like Alvarez, where they're going to put someone else in. And if Cesar keeps struggling, I definitely could see Scott Kingery getting more playing time. If he does well, he'll get more playing time, and Cesar would then become that utility man off the bench. So I think tonight the Phillies do bounce back. Pivetta has a good game against his former organization. If you remember when we traded for Papelbon, or traded Papelbon to the Nats, that's who we got back, and he was in the minors at that point. So I think he helps us bounce back. Our offense does good, who also did well last night. 6 runs should be enough to win a game, especially with your ace on the mound. He just didn't have a good game. Nolan needs to get going, but I believe he will, so I'm not too worried about him. Alvarez, if he has 2 more outings that he really doesn't look good, that's going to be when I get really concerned about him, because relief pitchers tend to have less wiggle room in itself for whatever reason. You tend to see throughout baseball when they're not going good, you tend to flip them. It could also be because there tends to be more lefty specialists, good relievers out there nowadays, and there tends to just be more. There's obviously a lot more conglomeration of relievers that can at least pitch to a mid-3 ERA than there are of starting pitchers. You have a lot of starting pitchers in the back half that are guys that are career mid-4 ERAs. So that's probably one perspective of it. But this has been a look ahead. I think the Phillies will do good tonight. I think Harper has a good game. I think he goes deep again tonight. And I think we're going to win tonight. I think Odubel has a couple hits. And my player of the game for tonight, I will actually pick as Odubel Herrera, because I think people are going to get on base and he's going to drive them in. Have a great day, everybody. Peace out.